going to spend about 15 seconds a slide, heads up, all right? My plan is to talk you through some behavioral economics principles, introduce you, to the space, and give you some examples on how Aussie and global businesses are utilizing these principles right now. Something about myself, 20 years of research, agency, client side, heading up and scaling intelligence teams across a lot of companies, more recently at UberEats and Zip. Done tons of projects, and as Kev alluded to earlier, I do wear multiple hats. I have worked on a lot of brands across US, UK, and ANZ. This is a snapshot. And the kinds of things that I work on is quite varied. So one day it could be market research, market sizing, usage understanding. The other day it might be doing a media evaluation, return of investment, product research, user experience, which is the actual app itself, customer experience, which is NPS, CSAT, employee research. What I'm focusing on today is behavioral economics, which is like a small subset of what I work on. And bottom right, I'm quite proud to have actually launched my own GPT model as well at Zip, called Zip GPT, which is quite exciting. Now, for anyone who doesn't know behavioral economics, this is not a new topic. It's been there for a long time. Multiple governments are using it. UK was the first to come on board, having their behavioral insights team. Started in 2010, followed by an exec order by President Obama in 2015, and Australia followed soon after in 2016. I've actually got mates who work at BETA, which is the behavioral economics team of the Australian government. And they've done about 30 projects till date, which is fantastic. The key principles that kind of sit behind behavioral economics is people get influenced by mostly things at a subconscious level. So people do certain things, but they don't know why are they actually doing things. So, behavioral economics tries to understand those and then nudge behavior. People are also usually in system one, they're fast, quite automatic, quick, intuitive, whereas system two is more about slower, more detail, anything to do with finances, anything to do with big decisions kind of sits in system two. And there's hundreds of biases that influence us. So I'm going to be talking to only 5 today. And trust me, 5 is quite a lot. First one, really, really simple. Just how can you make things easy? The takeaway which I want you to actually take away after about 7 minutes is, can you actually apply any of these 5 learnings to your business? So what I like to call is friction. How can you actually remove friction? How can you make things which are seemingly small, irrelevant to you? How can you actually improve them? There's a couple of examples. If you are posting regularly on Facebook, for instance, did you know that if you actually post with an image, your post is 3 times more likely to be clicked on? Or if your post has the word breaking in it or breaking news, that there's a 60% more chance for it to be viewed. Or if you actually use less syllables in a word as well, there's higher likelihood of it being clicked, liked, or shared. Transport for New South Wales recently also, it's not recent, it's about 7 years back now, but one of the issues they had was how can they actually distribute people at platforms across multiple carriages? So they came up with a color coding scheme, helping people just quickly look at the screens and then understand that, hey, there's some space in the earlier carriages in this example. The second principle is the power of default. So, which basically means that people tend to stick with the default choices that are given to them. And essentially, they are lazy to actually go ahead or look for different things or take a different course of action. In this example from the UK, if a company asks you, hey, do you want to actually participate in a pension fund? 61% of people said yes. But when this company actually changed it to automatically enroll them and then give them the option to opt out, 83% of people actually opted, would by default, they had to opt in, and very few opted out. So that resulted in about 400,000 people now actually being on a pension plan. So this is just one example of a default. A few other examples we see from overseas is a lot of universities, what they're doing to reduce food waste is they're just reducing the size of plates. You actually see this quite often in buffets across Australia. Or for that matter, if you want to actually convince students to go for sustainable food options as well, all you do is you actually move the sustainable food options on the top of the menu where they're much more visible and they're more likely to get selected. Another interesting example comes from Argentina, where it's a fact that the people in Argentina, on average, were using 3 times more salt than that's recommended by the World Health Organization, and it's directly correlated with hypertension and other problems. So the Argentinian government changed the default. They put in a law, and you can Google this, they actually put in a law for salt shakers to be completely taken off across each and every restaurant in Buenos Aires. One of the third things which you can look at is, how can you actually make things more salient, which is subtle changes in the way things actually presented to you, either through imagery or through text, and it can actually influence people. This example from UK kind of talks about unlicensed vehicles on the road being a challenge and people not actually going and renewing it. So by just making one small change, which is showing an image of that person's car on the renewal letters, that impacted renewal rates to go up by 9%, which is massive when you actually think about it. Think about the cost to just kind of print that car image on top of that letter. Here's a very simple one as well. The weather network in China, the way they used to present their content used to be very, very, just called it scientific. Whereas when you actually just make it more relatable, it's exactly the same information, just presented in a different way. So, it's a no-brainer that which one actually cuts through much more. Here's an example on
1 minute to go. 1 minute to go. So
yeah. Another example from Uber. This is my early campaign which I worked on, which we had to drive reliability, which was we just kind of started highlighting, how many minutes will it take you from an Uber from here, and that again drove multiple trips from a particular place. Social norms or social proofing basically means we follow the crowd. An example from here as well, from my Uber days, is just highlighting how many people are actually using the ride-sharing app, and it just drove social acceptance. And my last example, and I might just jump into my last slide, is when you actually say a Mercedes-Benz compared to a Rolls-Royce at a car show, you are anchoring it to a more expensive item, and the likelihood of Rolls-Royce being chosen is much lesser if you're if on the market. But one of the things that Rolls-Royce successfully did was actually started showcasing it with the luxury yacht shows. So they changed the anchor point. So all of a sudden, the Rolls-Royce started seen to be much more cheaper. So here's just a few examples. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask me now. If not, feel free to reach out to me later as well. I've done more than 100 sort of studies in this space. Thank you.